Two of tech's Magnificent Seven rode to the rescue Thursday evening with better-than-expected first-quarter results that followed a downbeat report from Facebook owner Meta in disturbing U.S. economic news this morning. Alphabet, the parent company of Google, beat analyst projections for sales and profit and announced it would be paying a dividend in June, and Microsoft also outperformed Wall Street expectations with the lift from its cloud and artificial intelligence operations. I'm Rosemary Miller, here to discuss the results with Peter Cohan, a Babson College Associate Professor of Management Practice. Thank you so much for joining me today, Peter.
Thanks for inviting me.
For sure. So, Peter, after the GDP came in cool, inflation ran hot, and Meta disappointed on sales, Google and Microsoft came out with upbeat results. Are these just company-by-company stories, or can we draw any conclusions about the tech sector, which has been doing great in recent months?
Well, I haven't seen the forecast for revenue growth and earnings growth for the next quarter and for the next year, so I'm going to withhold my judgment on Microsoft and Google. But it looks like, based on what they've reported so far, that they exceeded expectations on the top line and the bottom line. And I think the key thing here is that generative AI is really a big trend. I mean, it's a big trend with Meta, which is really spending heavily to catch up, and I think amount that they spent really worried investors in its stock, whereas Microsoft has been spending heavily, and it has done really well in terms of accelerating revenue growth, accelerating the growth of the of the Microsoft Cloud, of Azure, because of demand for training and operating large language models. And Google has also improved its advertising revenue growth, as well as boosting its growth from the Google Cloud. And one of the interesting pieces about the Google report is that they're actually making money on the cloud. They made $900 million, which sort of means that maybe they're past the hump that Meta is now trying to sort of climb to build a real AI business.
Well, Peter, how significant is the Alphabet dividend to investors? It's only 20 cents on a stock. That's rocketed almost 20% to $177 in after-hours trading. But the company also announced a $70 billion buyback authorization, so it seems like the company is signaling confidence.
Yes, it's signaling confidence. I mean, it's also signaling that it has more cash than it knows how to invest, which is sort of a problem that Apple also had. And, several years ago, it started buying back stock and paying dividends, and that seemed to attract a different class of investor than it had before, like Warren Buffett. It kind of makes me wonder whether maybe Warren Buffett will say, you know what, I'm tired of Apple not coming up with any new products. Maybe I should put my money into this company that's buying back stock and paying dividends, that's also growing, namely Google.
Mm-hmm. Well, it also looks like all of Alphabet's divisions had strong sales. Which do you think are the most interesting?
Well, I'm very interested in what they're going to try to do to monetize generative AI. I mean, I know that they benefit the cloud. They benefit from the cloud by having that. They've invested in hiring some amazing talent, and I'd like to see them create some products that are truly competitive when it comes to these AI chatbots. So far, they've been a little bit cautious and perhaps not monetized as much as, say, Microsoft, which has launched the Copilot. So I would say that in general, that Microsoft is clearly the leader here. But in the stock market today, it seems like Google really exceeded expectations, perhaps more than Microsoft did, since Google stock went up double-digit percentage, whereas Microsoft is up about 5% the last time I checked.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Microsoft, their cloud division is the big winner. What can you tell us there?
Well, I mean, they've done tremendously well. I mean, the CEO of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, created that cloud division, and it's still accelerating. And I think the real reason it's accelerating is because of the investments that Microsoft made in ChatGPT and generative AI, that then drives companies to use its cloud service. And as long as there's growing demand for the use of generative AI, there's going to be an acceleration in the cloud service revenue for Microsoft.
So what about Microsoft's traditional PC business? The company said conditions are stabilizing.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of almost ignore that. It's not growing. I mean, it's been sort of shrinking slowly, but I think that it's one of those things it's good to have around because there's a lot of people that use the software that runs on the hardware that they make, and I just think it's a business that's always going to be somewhat cyclical. Now, the one thing that is quite interesting to me is that there's this sort of new business that, in theory, Microsoft could get into, which is the business of AI-powered servers. There's a company called Supermicro that is really joined to the hip with NVIDIA and has done extremely well because of providing these AI servers. And perhaps that's an area that Microsoft can get into.
So is that the main way Microsoft is making money with AI?
Well, I mean, they're making money a lot of different ways. I mean, gaming, obviously, just completed a huge acquisition in gaming, and all the software. But I think that the real growth excitement at Microsoft all relates to generative AI, the possibility of people using their cloud in order to run the large language models, and also the possibility of monetizing Copilot. So if they can figure out how to get people to pay for that and to make it a major revenue source for the company, I think that would really jazz up the stock.
Well, Peter, is there anything else on your radar regarding Microsoft and Alphabet that you believe should be on ours?
Well, I think the one thing that's kind of interesting to me is they are trying to develop chips so that they don't need to buy from NVIDIA. And I think if they were to succeed in doing that, that would be really interesting. Another thing that's super interesting is the idea of going from large language models, which are very expensive to build and operate, to small language models, which would have a very interesting impact on sort of democratizing generative AI to more people and more companies, and allow people to use generative AI on their handheld devices instead of requiring cloud services.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Peter.
Thank you, Rosemary. Have a nice weekend.